If you can hear this music, I don't own the rights to it. Let me turn it on down. Greetings, everyone. I am Camille Shabazz, and I'm continuing a lecture or talk that I gave around 2 weeks ago entitled The Nation of Islam, Drug Wars, and Sexual Perversion. Where do I start? Well, you have to look at part one to really see where I'm going, because I'm going to bridge into my meeting with Brother Gary, my good brother from back in the day, which was very, very interesting. I told you that I stood up initially in the Nation of Islam October 26, 1980, at the young age of just 15 years old. But I didn't officially stand up until September of 1985, after going to Madison Square Garden and seeing Louis Farrakhan in person. It was really inspirational. So I stand up fully at this time, and at this time, Brother Gary is the assistant minister to AK. But I'm going to rewind backwards. No, pardon me. Yeah, I'm going to rewind backwards to 1981. After I stood up in 1980, me and AK's son, Kane, we were just 1 year apart. We were going to high school together. And after I stood up, we created a bond. We looked alike. Most of the girls that liked him liked me, and vice versa. So it was always good being in his company, because he, like me, was a player in the making, so to speak. So fast forward, because we met in October, we started becoming friends during that time. During the end of the year, during testing, when they were doing all the exams, and people's schedules are all everywhere. You can come in early or you come in late. But anyway, me and Brother Kane rode our bikes up to school that day, since we didn't have to go to school. So we're up there riding around the campus and socializing, and all of a sudden, the police are on a high-speed chase. And it's two men being chased, and they're running through the school field. That's the grass of the field. The police are literally going on the campus grass and on the sidewalk, trying to catch one of the brothers who's running inside the building. The brother runs in the building, and as he's running in the building, Brother Kane says to me, "I know that brother. I know that brother." And Kane went around the building on the bike while everybody was in one location. And I don't know if it was through just some telepathic type of shit, but when we went around the front of the building, that brother who the police was chasing was climbing out of a window. And lo and behold, I didn't even know until several years later, because what happened was Kane knew the brother. Yeah, okay, Kane knew the brother, and we put him on the handlebars. And we rode all the way up to Silas Field, all the way on the east end. He got this brother on his handlebars. And the police, nothing, they didn't see us. We got this brother all the way down there, and coming to find out, that was Brother Gary. I didn't find that out until 1985, when I went back and stood up fully. I found out that that was him. And ironically, he was cool, or probably best friends, with the brother who brought me in to the nation, who actually asked me to take this to the next level. I need to do a part 2. So anyway, as I indicated in part 1, AK was going through these problems with all these women he was running through. All these letters that was being written about him and being sent to Chi-Town, to headquarters, And at one point, which was crazy and unjust, and ironically, this sister is still in the mosque today, but she was treated so unjustly as she was one of AK's concubines who ended up having one of his children. Farrakhan came out to Plainfield, New Jersey, and had held a meeting, a council meeting, a trial, so to speak, with this sister there and with Kareem. Oh, wow. With AK there. And when it was all said and done, because, you know, Islam is so crazy, what man or woman is going to have sex in front of 4 witnesses? Unless they're freaks or a part of an orgy or something. But anyway, it couldn't be proved because there wasn't 4 witnesses. That's the basis of it. That's how they've been getting away in Islam for centuries. You got to have 4 witnesses. Come on, how uncommon is that? Unless you have some peeping toms looking through the window, 4 of those type of pets, pervs, which wouldn't be impossible because the Islamic world leads in the digestion of pornography. I think Pakistan is still number 1 in the entire world when it comes to porn viewing. But back to what I was talking about. So, sister is mishandled. She's put out the mosque by Farrakhan. And as she's departing, Farrakhan says to this woman who is right, she's right, you need to take off that headpiece because it doesn't even look good on you. Anyway, very, very, very hurtful words, very unjust words, very unjust treatment. And we of the Macadine is totally against any form of injustice. So, as I told you in the first series, Kareem, that's his name, AK Kareem was sat down. Salutations and peace. He was sat down. Gary was put into a shadow type of leadership. Actually, Kareem was the shadow government. Gary and myself was the ones up front. I was his assistant and he was the minister. So, at that point, the spirit was so out of whack. It was like everybody was doing, anybody that had any authority, which was myself, Gary, and Clark, we had free reins to do whatever we wanted to do, which was number 1, abuse of power, which is another subject. So, I had brought a brother in. From the city that I also was living in at one time called Perth Amboy, New Jersey. And I had amassed a little study group out there. And one of the first brothers that converted under me was a brother by the name of Earl, Brother Earl, who I later named Salam. But anyway, the brother was a meek brother, and he really fit the description of a beta male because he was unsure of himself. And he became the snack of this in particular sister out of New Brunswick. But before he started dealing with this sister out of New Brunswick, while we was going, me and the FOI, me and Brother Gary and Brother Clark and us, we would go on our different excursions and different final call outs, especially in New Brunswick. So anyway, while we were out there, of course, like I said, it was no holds barred. We were given the green light to do as we will, basically, as what's his name, Crawley, Aleister Crawley said, "Do as thy wilt." And that's basically what we was doing as we will, especially when it came to women, because Brother AK gave us the green light and he still was basically in power. So, Brother Gary meets this sister that was definitely for the streets. She was wild. She had masculine energy, single mom. She had all the red flags, which would tell a regular dude to stay the hell away, much less a Muslim. But anyway, since we was on this mission of conquesting all the women that we desired, because that, as we was learning, was a part of Islamic culture, we really went crazy. So, in one of our times when we were out there doing our little final call out, Brother Gary meets this sister by the name of Sophia. Like I said, wild, crazy, made for the streets. He starts messing with her out there and commits the cardinal sin of bringing that crazy woman to the mosque. Brings her to the mosque, still messing with her, but you still got the one that you're gonna marry in New York, who's a virgin, who's waiting for you. But that's another story. But anyway, and at the same time, I'm dealing with a sister who lives right around the corner. So I wasn't no better. The older sister that worked for the sheriff's department. So we was going out there together. He dropped me off and he'll go over there and pick me up. So that's how wild we were getting. Minister, assistant minister, out there getting busy in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So, brother knew it was just a temporary thing. But of course, Sophie didn't. So anyway, he dumps the sister. Sister starts coming out and she starts becoming vindictive. So she puts her focus on poor Brother Earl. Poor Brother Earl, the beta male. Some kind of way she slides under Brother Earl, and Brother Earl starts messing with that sister. But it was only to get at Brother Gary. So, fast forward a couple of months down the line, her getting Brother Earl to make Brother Gary jealous wasn't sufficient. She then starts spreading rumors about Gary and her sexual escapades, which got to the mosque, got to the MGT, and he became embarrassed. Not just was he embarrassed, but by this time, Brother Earl and her was cohabitating and about to get married in New Brunswick. So he was embarrassed because he was now put in a situation that was steadily brewing. So Brother Gary is hot. He is really, really upset. So after a Sunday meeting, he says he wants to go out there and talk with her. So me, him, and Brother Clark, the one who got hit upside the head during our battle at the projects, we went out to New Brunswick. Now, let me tell you something about this brother. Brother Clark. I might as well tell who you are too. I love you, brother. Brother Mark, which is my brother's name, by the way, as well. Now, Brother Mark, with all due respect, was a dedicated soldier, and probably still is, to the Nation of Islam. But his devotion was so robotic that it was comical. He was such a to-the-letter fooler. He would even quote Farrakhan's tapes to the letter in the voice tone and repeat it to the FOI in its precise manner. But that's just how the brother was. You know, a straight up, devoted, frontline soldier that ultimately could be used in the wrong way, as he was. So we go out to Sophie's house. We knock on the door. Now, I'll never forget, Brother Earl opened up the door, let us in. We walked through the kitchen into the bedroom, to the living room, and sat down. Brother Earl went and got her from the back. She comes out, sits on the couch, and brother asks her about the rumors that she was spreading. And she and her, oh wow, arrogance and just no self-respect. What she said was so nasty. You know what I'm saying? It was some nasty shit that she repeated. She repeated it, and Brother Gary lost his damn mind up in there, man. I'm like, what the hell? He ran over there and grabbed the lady, knocked her upside the head. We had to go grab the brother off her. My brother Earl's there. He don't know what to do. Because if he hit Gary, we got to beat his ass. So it was terrible confusion. Terrible confusion. So we got him out of there. We left. And that really was the beginning. Although it wasn't the total part of our downfall, but that was the beginning of our downfall. Because even though that happened 30 years later, I still cringe when I think about that, because that was the last thing that I thought he was going to do. The last thing I thought that man was going to do is go upside that sister head in her own house in front of Brother Earl. That shit was mind blown. But we had to do damage control because we was living a foul life, a contradictory life. So what you do is you cover down. She was the villain when they both was the villains, including Brother Earl, who wasn't married to her. So it was just a whole bunch of shit going on that wasn't supposed to be going on from the door. Okay. So that gets out, and of course, nobody gets sat down, nobody gets reprimanded. They write letters to Chicago. In some kind of way, that shit is quelled. So, as I was saying, that we started the drug wars. I told you about how we hit Huckles and took his safe. But on another occasion, and this was the last one, and I'm glad it was the last one because somebody was going to get killed. Brother Gary had a jewelry store on the corner on the West End, the end of the West End, right on the same street as the YWCA. That side street, I forget the name of it. But anyway, it's on East 2nd Street. He was on the corner of East 2nd Street. And he had a jewelry store that I don't think he ever stopped. He would like go and buy stuff wholesale from New York or whatever and sell it that way. But I don't recall him ever stocking the jewelry store. But next door to him was another dope dealer who I knew the girlfriend of because we grew up together. So, brother started casing the joint since he lived next door to us. And let me rewind a little more. Because Gary, along with the brother who brought me out, he could contest to this because Brother Gary confided in me about that part, that they were burglars. So that's one thing that he already was a professional burglar, because they was going up into Scotch Plains, into the hills, Somerset, I believe, and hitting them rich white folks. So, you know, this is the statute of limitations and all that, so I don't think nothing's gonna come up. But I'm not doing no fucking snitching. I'm telling the story, because this is part of what resurfaced as we were out there doing wrong and going against what we claimed belief in and what we were propagating. So he's casing this man's spot for about a month, till one day he was like, look, man, when the dude leave, it's on. And what's so funny is what he used to open the door, it was one of them crowbars. We went right up in there, and I took the safe, but somebody tipped that man. So we running out. I got the safe. Gary go one way, I go another way, but I gotta run all the way down to the mosque, which is about a half a mile down the street, with a safe that weighs about, it was a small safe, so it weighed about 50 pounds. Yeah, it weighed about 50 pounds. We had it in a pillowcase. So I'm running down 2nd Street, because the mosque was on East 2nd Street. So once you cross Richmond, you go into East End, which the mosque was about maybe a block or two away. So I'm running down the street. I'm running down Front Street. That's what happened. I'm running down Front Street, and as I'm running down 2nd Street. As I'm running down 2nd Street, something told me to make a left and cross the Front Street, which I'm really fortunate that I did, because as I'm running down Front Street that goes parallel with 2nd Street, I see the car of the dude whose house it was go down the street doing around 80 miles an hour looking for me. So I'm running, and I got this damn safe. I'm out of breath. I'm in hard shoes, and I'm not even dressed for the occasion. So ironically, I make it to the back of the mosque, get let in, and of course it was another hit. It was a great hit. You know what I'm saying? Once again, we got rid of any drugs, took the money. Matter of fact, it wasn't no drugs in particular incident. We just got a certain amount of bank, which was good, and we paid. We went down there and paid what they called a poor rate to Brother AK. Made sure he got his stipend, since he was the shadow government. Okay. There's a drug dealer at the time by the name of Rick, who was the biggest drug dealer in the city. He was greater than Huckles at this point, who we had got earlier. So Gary made a deal with this dude to give us a package. And the dude, based on us, based on the reputation of the NOI, literally gave it to him. Gave him a startup kit. And little did we know that startup kit was our demise. It was our death kit, death certificate. Because after that, as I said before, we took a fall. We took a hard fall. Because what happened was, the deeper we got into greed and into lust, we became consumed by the greed and the lust. And before you knew it, we were victims of the same thing that we were victimizing others with. Because I was out there smoking what they call woolies or cavies, and trying to fuck everything in sight that looked beautiful. Because I had the power at this point, which wasn't no superpower. It was actually a suicidal power. And I misused it. And we all fell. And that whole regime fell. And I don't think anybody ever really came back to their lofty position. Although I was fortunate to come out to California and reconnect and rebuild my life again, which I'm going to go into in part 3, my experience in Sacramento, because it's a connection. Connect the dots with the Muslims who came out of perverted New Jersey and New York under a wicked regime and spread that disease, that spiritual disease, all over America or wherever those followers went, which I was included. So, like I said, we all fell. And more regimes came after that, but it never ever rose again. And that's really the whole picture of the Nation of Islam and religion in general. It never lasts because most of the people are not even real, because the doctrine is not real. The characters of the doctrine are not real. It's a whole mythology. So you try to fit your life into these lies, and it causes you to become a lie and live a lie. So with that being said, thank you for listening. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I can add? Because I don't know if I said in the beginning that Brother Timothy X. Bradshaw, who was the secretary back then when me, Brother Gary, and Brother Mark were minister, captain, assistant minister, Timothy X. Bradshaw was the secretary. And I don't like to say rest in peace. I never liked R.I.P. I like to say trip. TRIP. Have a peaceful trip. Because the body going in the ground is not the end all. And I believe that he died a Muslim. So even the Muslims believe out of their scripture that you're not supposed to even say that those who die are dead. It says, no, they are not dead. You just perceive them not, whatever that means. So if he believed that, like most Muslims supposed to believe, he's not resting in peace. He's tripping in peace. Hopefully he's on a trip going somewhere else. But anyway, what's ironic is, when we was in the regime, we used to literally go over this brother's house and watch porn. And he was married. We used to go right in his basement and watch porn while we was doing our NOI work. So, hey, it is what it is. Men will be men, boys will be boys, girls will be girls, women will be women. It's the nature of things. And religion cannot change your nature, only you can. That's the moral to the story. It's all up to us. So in part 3, I'm going to be dealing with my experience in Sacramento under a man that we refer to as the Arm, Abdul Rahman Muhammad. It's going to be interesting because these men, because he, like Abdul Kareem Muhammad, who I was referring to as AK, they were born in the 30s and early 40s. Even Louis Farrakhan, born in 33. If you look at that type of Negro, first or second generation, third generation from the Emancipation Proclamation, if you look at the nature of these dudes, they were always crabs in the barrel. I don't care if it was King and A. Philip Rudolph. All these Negroes from that Jim Crow segregation era, we shall overcome era, are really deeply embedded Negroes. The Negro mentality in them is so deep, and the hate and the Willie Lynch syndrome is so deep in them dudes. Now, when Abdul Kareem Muhammad got sat down, Farrakhan sent out a man named Abdul Allah Muhammad. So instead of calling himself Abdul Allah Muhammad, he relished in calling himself Allah because it made him feel superior. But him and Kareem hated each other. And when he was sent to New York to take over after him, before it happened, Kareem had asked him to help him. He needed his help. And ironically, Kareem had held the cassette tape of that meeting that night when Abdul Allah Muhammad was talking at the FOI meeting in New York. And he admits in front of all the men that Kareem asked him to help him, and he agreed to helping him. And he said, but in my heart, I knew I lied because I wanted my brother to fall. That's the mentality that these Negroes in that age group have. That Willie Lynch syndrome. They hate each other. And that's the same spirit that this brother who was born in that same era, who's now passed by the name of Abdul Rahman Muhammad, same spirit. From New York all the way to California, them Negroes in that age group who love to have their hair permed and be light-skinned. They don't like dark-skinned people. They have the same mentality, and it doesn't matter if they're in the Nation of Islam. As a matter of fact, if you look at most ministers, 99% of them in the Nation of Islam are light-skinned men. Light-skinned men. And ironically, the dark-skinned brother, who happens to be not an attractive brother by the name of Abdullah Muhammad, dark-skinned brother with bad skin, they send him to be the prison minister. Send him to the dungeons. Find that real interesting. So, it's a mentality with them jokers. And that's what they are. They're jokers. Sellouts. Al Sharpton, all them dudes from that We Shall Overcome era, all the way up to the 60s. The 60s temporarily changed our DNA for the better because of the spirit of the 60s and what that brought about. But the ones born from the 50s on down tore up from the floor up. Tore up from the floor up. And only a few of them were able to raise up out of that, like a Malcolm X or Marcus Garvey. So, stay tuned for part 2. I know I kind of went everywhere and rambled a little bit, but I hope you got the gist of what I'm trying to say. You know, whatever you're about, be about it 100%, or don't fuck with it at all, bottom line. Because as we teach in the Macadine, in our alphabet, it talks about Gödel's theorem. And it teaches you how truth and falsehood, right and wrong, is really subjective. So whatever it is you believe in or you claim to be about, just be about it. That's all. Be true to the game, whatever it is. Be true to yourself, whatever it is. More later. Peace.